Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. I'm Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington. We do wedding videography, corporate videography, and basically film any other live event that you might have. And today I'm joined by Stephanie Skeffington of Seattle Flashing Light Photography. And she has been so gracious to come in and talk with us a little bit about her professional background and why she's a wedding photographer. So Stephanie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Skeffington, like Reed said, and I am the owner of Seattle Flashing Lights Photography, which is based out of Shorewood, Washington, just a little bit south of West Seattle. I have lived in Washington my whole life, except for a little stint in college where I was down in Arizona. And I've been doing wedding photography for 7.5 years, which has kind of flown by. Yeah, and I love what I do. It's kind of the best job in the world, getting to meet new people and capture love stories all the time. Like, it's pretty great. Yeah.
And Stephanie's actually my neighbor. I don't think we ever realized how close we actually live to each other. But, and I will preface now and say that like any good podcaster, I went to a rock concert last night and lost my voice. So fortunately, Stephanie will do a lot of the talking today, but that was a good move on my part. So Stephanie, I was going on your website in preparation for this interview, and you have quite a unique background. You're a certified pilot.
Yeah.
And why don't you go back, and even if it's before that, but you said you got a camera at an early age and started taking photos, right?
Yeah. It's always a favorite question is like, how long have you been doing this? And obviously I've been in business for 7.5 years, but I think like most photographers, I've been doing this my whole life. Like I don't really remember a time that I didn't have a camera. So I got my first official camera, which was still film, like the old school film, when I was like 7 or 8, and it did not leave my side ever. But yeah, so then I love traveling. So I wanted to do something where I would get to travel around. So I went into aeronautics and have a bachelor's degree in aeronautical science, graduated from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, which is where I met my husband. And both of us are commercially rated pilots. Pirates, yes, we're also pirates. It's very exciting. But we're commercially rated pilots. My husband's actually an instructor pilot as well. But graduated college during the economic downturn. So that was a great time to try to get into any kind of job. So I went into corporate, yeah. And then still kind of just pursued photography on the side. And in 2011, a friend of mine from college who was actually a pilot as well, we started Seattle Flashing Lights just kind of on a whim. And it just took off. It was crazy. So
going back to being a commercial pilot or being a pilot, because I think we're burying the lead here. What was it about that appealed to you? Was it, the sense of adventure or?
Yeah, it was mostly, it's a really cool profession, like getting to fly planes. I always joke around too that I'm like working my way through the alphabet backwards, like doing piloting, and now I'm a photographer. Next will be petroleum operator. But no, I really wanted to travel, wanted to, see the world and get paid to do it. And that was really what drove me into pursuing a career in aviation. And I actually worked in aviation for 10 years before, and during the startup of my business too, at Boeing and Alaska Airlines.
Really? And what were you doing there? Flying or?
I never actually flew professionally. I have a commercial license. So it's a little bit tricky. So you get a license. I'm qualified to fly for pay or hire, but then you have to get type rated in the planes that you want to actually fly and stuff. So I have multi-engine instrument rating as well. So I can fly multi-engine planes. I flew aerobatics for a while, kind of done the whole gamut. The only thing I haven't done is get roto, helicopter certified or seaplane. Yeah.
Is that hard to get certified? You got to be smart, right? And brave, right? I couldn't do that. Talk about that.
It was really challenging. So during college, I was going to school full time doing my degree, and then was also flying full time. So I'd have 4 hours a day where I was either doing ground ground instruction time or flying, like in-air instruction time. And I got a multitude of licenses like while I was in college. But yeah, I mean, it was really challenging to do. My husband's like super smart, so he had much easier time in school. Lots of math, lots and lots of math.
And so you guys met in college.
We did,
and then you guys have been together, and you've been married for 6 years now?
Almost 8.
Almost 8 years. Wow. Yeah. So now you're at Boeing. You're working, right, out of college?
Yeah, out of college. I worked in the business side. So kind of moved around the company. I was in government work for a while, like working with the Boeing defense side. Did procurement finance analyst work with them. Worked on the AWACS program. Got secret security clearance to work with them. Traveled around. I demoed flight sims for them for a while. So it wasn't flying, but I got to actually demo the P-8A, which is the airplane that's taking over for the P-3 Orion, which is like super old for the Navy. So the P-8A is like the new fancy airplane that they're selling to the U.S. Navy. So I flew around to like Washington, D.C., got to go to the Pentagon, and then demoed their flight controls for like different higher up Navy professionals. So it was pretty awesome.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So then, why leave that, or why go out on your own? Was it from that then that you transitioned to photography?
Yeah. So I was at Boeing when I originally started Seattle Flashing Lights with my buddy Doug, and we started together because like we were really good friends. He's obviously got a really great eye for photos as well, but had a great background in like web design and could do a lot more technical stuff than I am capable of doing. So it was a really good mix. And he actually still so I took over when he got married, and he went back to grad school and didn't want to be part of the business anymore. So, but he still helps with a lot of my web design stuff still. So it's nice to have him around.
Was it scary to make that decision, or?
Oh yeah, it was super. I mean, like anytime, like self-employment is amazing. Like it's amazing to run your own business, to have 100% ownership of what you're doing. Like corporate America is great, but there's nothing like there's nothing like owning your own business, and every success and every failure you're 100% responsible for. So it's, that's really scary. But when the successes happen, which is way more often than the failures, there's nothing like it. So, and anytime you don't do great, you learn from it, and that's what's kept me going and doing really well and being successful in photography too. And I think my background helps, like I have a background in lean. I'm lean certified. Did that at Alaska Airlines.
What does that mean?
So that means like for processes and procedures, like especially for manufacturing, making things more efficient. So I'm pretty good with like my workflow and process flow from the point of like customer introduction to delivering my final product of photos. Everything's very organized and moves very effectively and efficiently.
That's funny. So then when you launched a business, was it always going to be weddings, or was that the primary focus, or?
That's a good question. Honestly, when we started, I think both Doug and I we were just excited to be doing something we love so much. It had always been a passionate hobby of ours. And to be honest, I couldn't believe people were actually going to pay me to do something I loved so much. Which is great because obviously I have a huge passion for what I do. But yeah, so we kind of just dove in, didn't really know what we were doing in terms of running a business, but we did know how to take really good photos. So we kind of jumped in with both feet, and it's been daunting. There's been a lot of learning just from the business side of running things, but we didn't necessarily at first want to just focus on weddings, but it worked out that was an area that both of us really enjoyed, like, because you get to capture a whole day's worth of a story in still pictures, which I think is kind of a unique challenge in and of itself, to tell a story with no words. So yeah, it's great to start and like build a relationship with a couple. We don't just show up the day of the wedding. We're working with them ahead of the wedding, doing usually engagement photos, or at very least like talking through months in advance. And there's yeah, there's just really nothing like the relationships we have with our wedding clients. Like I still do photos, like family photos with a lot of people that I worked with for weddings. And it's so much fun to like get to watch them grow, not only as a couple, but when they have kids and see their kids grow. Like there's several families I've worked with for almost the entire time we've been in business. So like 7 years. And now their kids are like in elementary school, and it's really fun to like continue seeing their families grow and get to capture those special moments for them.
Talk about, like you said, you guys didn't know a lot about running a business. It's a daunting task. Are there any early mistakes or learning lessons? I mean, obviously, but anything that stands out or anything that you thought, man, like we could have done that better?
Oh, yeah. The biggest one was sales tax. Washington is really tricky with sales tax, especially when you're running a service-based company. And obviously, I have a unique background in piloting and corporate business, but not I'm not a tax accountant. When we were first starting off, we didn't really have the budget to hire a CPA. So we were, doing a lot of research ourselves and relying on friends that were CPAs. But we got some bad advice and weren't collecting taxes correctly and got audited. And it was it was a great learning experience though, because like I learned that and it wasn't anything we were doing like maliciously or anything. Yeah. It was just a total misstep. We just had bad information and thought we were doing it correctly and weren't. And so we had to pay a fairly large back tax. We hadn't collected taxes, but owed on the amount that we charged. So luckily at that point, our business was in a very stable, successful place. And we were able to do that without, putting a huge financial strain on the company. But I did learn that the Washington state auditors are very nice, and they're very willing to work with you, especially when it's an honest mistake. They understand that a small business is not an expert in everything, even though you have to be an expert in everything when you run a small business.
Yeah, I think that's something that, if you're like a wedding photographer, you're not just a photographer, you're a web designer and a marketer and an accountant and
contract manager,
everything. So, it is very tough. Well, that's a good lesson.
It is. Yeah. And now I have a wonderful CPA. So we were doing everything perfect, which is great.
I had a similar when I brought on our accountant, and there was a lot of questions about stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And luckily I had paperwork and stuff, but they called me up in a panic and it's like, oh my gosh. And I said, oh no, okay, yeah. good. Making sure, because you want to do everything correctly.
Well, and you see too on the forums that we are a part of too. That's like one of the biggest questions I think for all small business owners is like the tax law is like so crazy and so confusing. So it's not a mystery as to why. It's a challenge.
Well, and it's different too for video than it is for photo, which doesn't make sense to me at all that we have an entirely different. Anyway, to get off of the tax here so you're doing weddings now. Mm-hmm. So if you started 7.5 years ago, mm-hmm. flashing light, and then you guys have been married for 8 years. Yes. So you guys were engaged when you were starting, or how did that timing work out?
It was right after we got married that the business started. So we were married in January. Well, that's a little bit of a fun story too. So we were officially married in June, the year prior, in 2010, because my husband got laid off and we needed insurance for him. So we legally got married in June and then waited until January to have like our official ceremony. So our 8th anniversary is this June, and then it's a drum roll until January for our official anniversary. So then we started after it was like in February that Seattle Flashing Lights kind of started taking shape.
Where'd you guys get married, just out of curiosity?
In Fiji.
That's cool.
Yeah. We're like avid travelers, which is great. I finally figured out that I don't need to work or get paid to travel. I just get paid and then I go on vacation, which is kind of awesome.
So you guys are newly married, mm-hmm. and you're getting ready to start a business.
Yeah.
It's a lot of changes going on.
Sure was. Yeah.
Talk about, so I know that I became a better wedding vendor after getting married, and where you guys, had just gone through that process. What was that like in terms of starting to do weddings?
Yeah, I think it gives you a lot of perspective, obviously, like how difficult it is for the couple planning everything. I mean, and I work with a lot of couples, Actually, like, Adam and Maria, Reed and I worked together for a wedding. That's how we met last summer. Was it last summer? Yeah. God, time just flies though. It doesn't even feel like almost a year. But they're planning their wedding from out of town. I work with a ton of people that are planning from out of state. And I did the same thing when I got married. I was planning from Washington, getting married in Fiji. I didn't get to meet any of my vendors. So I was putting a lot of trust in people, and I know what that's like. So I have a really good perspective on that when I'm working with wedding clients. And I feel like it gives them comfort knowing that I was in the same scenario, like not terribly long ago doing that, especially from out of country, So
yeah, I think that it's tough. And I know that obviously you can be a wedding vendor and not be married, but I do think that it gives you a unique, where you've gone through that process. And because I didn't know, like when I would deal with people and I had said like, having cried at my wedding, like I totally get now the emotions where maybe I didn't get that before. I mean, do you feel like the same way?
Oh, absolutely. And I warn all of my couples that I still, like, after 7.5 years of doing this, I still cry at every single wedding I photograph because, I get to know my clients, and then B, I really like my husband. Like we really like each other. So it always brings back those memories. Like you remember what it was like when you were standing up there saying those vows to each other and your first kiss and how exciting the whole day was. And I mean, just, the difficulty of planning a wedding, like you're working full time and then trying to plan this gigantic party and spending all this money. So I think it gives you it gives you empathy for your clients. Like you understand what they've been going through, like the headaches and the challenges and just everything. It does not make me jealous of them either, of doing all that planning again.
Right. You're like, I'm glad I never have to do that ever again. So, early on, you guys are doing weddings now. I mean, was that intimidating? Were you worried? Were you nervous about, just the pressures of it, or?
I think we jumped in so wholeheartedly and without a ton of, background on it when we first got started, that we didn't have the fear because we didn't know any better, if that makes sense. And even now, I still get nervous before every wedding. And I think that keeps me relevant, keeps me on my toes. It keeps me doing a great job at my craft. I think if I got complacent, that would be when we're looking at issues. But and now I guess I have a better perspective on like how things should flow. And, obviously doing this for 7.5 years, you get a really good idea of like timelines and keeping stuff on track and making sure that your couple's getting the most out of their time with you during the day. But we knew from the beginning though, a wedding is a really unique event because you can't redo any part of it. Really, like the first kiss, you can't miss that. you have to be ready. So luckily we're never in a situation where we didn't capture something, which is good. But there's always that fear, which I again think keeps you on your toes and keeps you doing the right thing and being good. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Cause like you said with, weddings, and it's that one time. I mean, I do think a lot with, photo, and whether it's product photo or, headshots or corporate, or same with video, like sometimes people, they're like, oh, it's a wedding. But to me, that's the hardest thing because you can't redo any of it. You can't miss any of it. You have to be on every second of the day. Right.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. You do. You have to be on your game from start to finish, like until like from the second that you arrive to the second that you leave, you have to be ready to roll and, be paying attention and be giving your all to the people that you're working with because they have spent probably a year plus planning all of that and dumping a ton of money into creating this awesome day to celebrate their love. So yeah, no pressure.
Right. What's your favorite part of a wedding day?
I love the couple portrait time. I don't like necessarily calling it like portraits because that seems a little stiff, but just like taking the bride and groom away from kind of the hustle and bustle of everything that's going on and spending time with just the two of them. When I first started, that wasn't necessarily a huge focus, but the more I've been doing weddings, the more I realized that is a huge piece of the day is like getting them away and spending time just with the two of them together, to take pictures so that they have a little bit of time to breathe too, not just me selfishly wanting to take adorable photos of them. But yeah, just so that's always been my favorite, like spending time with just the two people and seeing how much they're just feeling their excitement and seeing their love for each other, and yeah, seeing everything kind of culminate for all this planning that they've been doing.
No, I mean, it's exhausting getting married. I mean, people, and not all brides and grooms, make it through sometimes. I mean, it's a long day. I think it takes a special kind of, professional photographer or DJ or whatever to really nurture the couple through and kind of get them through that. I mean, I think it takes a special kind of temperament and skill, and,
I agree.
So, did your husband ever come help you at any weddings starting out, or?
Yes, he came to help, like do shot lists, check off the different wedding groupings of the family poses, and hold lights for me. He did that like 2 or 3 times and hated every second of it because it's just not his jam, and that's okay. He's very supportive of. The first 3 or 4 years of me getting my business off the ground was exhausting, and I was gone. I was working full time at a corporate job and running my business. And it for a lot of people that could have broke the marriage, but he's been amazing since the beginning. And he was the one that really pushed me into doing this full time. And because it is scary, it's scary to take that leap and leave the comfort of a corporate job to the unknown of self-employment, where you're not sure how each year is going to go financially. And it's been, I wouldn't have been able to do it without him, just from an emotional support standpoint. So I'm very lucky.
Do you find, I found Dorothy helped me kind of that first summer, and I think I had 4 weddings, and she came to, I think, all or 3 of them. And then it was like, the more successful I got, but the busier I got, then it's like, oh, well, you've got this now. Yeah. But we're like, you actually need the help more. Did you ever find that? I'm like, man, I could really help. I can really use your help now.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky too that Doug, my business partner at the time, for the first 4 or 5 years that we were, actually it was 4 years that we were in business. So I had like a built-in helper, buddy, partner. And so that made it a lot easier. And I think Matt, my husband, appreciated Doug, my work husband, even more, because he's like, oh, great, I don't have to be there to hold lights and check off your checklist of families. So, but yeah, but I think, and maybe you can relate to this too, the busier you get, obviously the better cash flow you have. And so then you can actually up your game and hire people to help you do stuff, which is nice. It's invaluable when you find good people to work with.
Yeah. So you said you were still in corporate, you started the business. So you said it was a 4-year transition?
So we started in 2011, and then I officially became full-time in January of 2016.
Okay.
So it's been 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Okay. So what was that transition process like?
Well, at the time I was working at Alaska Airlines, which was a dream job for me. I love that company. Their customers are like a lot of companies in this area in Seattle, especially like Nordstrom's, Alaska, emulate a brand of customer service that I think I've built my business on. Like, my customer service is one of the most important pieces to me. Obviously, delivering amazing photos is a huge piece, but like offering my customers a great experience from start to finish is so important, and is a huge cornerstone of Seattle Flashing Lights. So anyway, was working at Alaska as a senior analyst for them in the warranty, maintenance and engineering department. So I basically just put in my notice that the transition, it was a crazy busy job. Like, it was very time consuming and very stressful. So it, was taking a toll on my quality of life, because I was working, 50 hours a week at that job, and then working still about 30 to 40 hours a week doing photos. So I was like not sleeping, not doing anything, I look back on it and I'm like, I don't know how I survived, to be honest.
It was about a 9-10 month transition for me. And like that was almost the end of me. And I couldn't imagine that, stretched out over 5 years. That's a lot.
It was. Yeah. But yeah, when we actually decided, I think when Matt and I sat down to look at, the actual possibility of me doing this full time was in June. And then the transition basically took about 6 months to like figure out when the best time was to like notify and give my work enough time to like find a replacement. And I didn't want to leave them hanging either because I still love that company. So.
Well, and that is interesting that you brought up where, that kind of that customer service that you want to emulate. Because I do think about that a lot where, what we do in terms of like the visual medium, it's subjective, right? Like people may like your photos or not, people may like, my videos or not, but in terms of like things that you can control, like everybody appreciates good customer service, right? And everybody appreciates that sort of thing. So I guess talk about that more, about what you hope your clients, kind of that experience you hope they go through.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a huge cornerstone of my business. I treat every client that comes to me how I would want to be treated. If there's any issue that they encounter, that's something within my control. I want to do everything in my power to help solve the problem, to help whatever it is, to help make it an easy transition. Besides just documenting a wedding day or like taking photos of a family or whatever it is that I'm doing, I want them to feel at ease with me and know that they're in really good hands, and that if anything were to go wrong, that I wouldn't just leave them high and dry ever. And I think it's reflected well. Like we are the top rated photography business on Yelp. If you search for photographer, we're the number one that pops up. We have a 5-star review all around. And I have customers that have been with me for the entire time I've been in business, even though my pricing has gone up, which I think speaks to the level of service that we provide them. They've wanted to stick around because they like knowing. Well, there's the relationship factor too, of course, but like they like knowing that they're going to be well taken care of always.
So talk about, it's January now.
Yeah.
You've made that transition. Do you remember that first day or that first week when you were like, this is it now? Do you have any memory of that?
I remember being super excited that I didn't have to put on like work clothes. I think I spent and January through March is usually my slower season because in Washington, it's like the worst weather and obviously not high for weddings typically. So I kind of purposely picked that time of year just so that I had I wasn't like hitting my busy season. I actually had like a whole week off and I got to sleep in. It was so amazing. So I just remember like lounging around quite a bit, which sounds really professional and awesome, but it was definitely something I needed. I needed a little break.
Well, after working 80, 90 hours a week, I think for a long time, I think that was well worth it.
Right. I felt like it was well deserved.
Do you, and this is probably a no-brainer question, but do you enjoy having your own company and something that you can take pride in terms of like kind of how you present yourself out? I know that working in corporate, like you said, is great, but it is something to have ownership over something your own.
100%. Like I absolutely love my business. I love being self-employed. I love creating my own schedule. I love being flexible. Like that's a big piece of the customer service too, is being flexible for my clients and not having to have a full-time job to juggle with my business allows me to be extra flexible for the people I'm working with. It's also really rad to actually get to spend time with my husband and, like have a couple days off every once in a while, which, is pretty exciting. And my work-life balance is oodles better. Now I'm so much happier. But yes, owning my own business has been one of the best decisions that I've ever made in my life. And I'm so glad I took the leap. Yeah.
And not that you can't, do both and be successful. But I do think when it is your primary focus and your primary source of income, that, like you said, that flexibility and that service does come through where like, if you're trying to juggle and you only can work weekends or a couple days, that like you may just not be able to be accommodating that, even if you want to, right? You're like, well, I have to go to work, or I have to. And so I think that having that sole focus, I think, right, and like you can just meet your clients kind of whenever they need, maybe, because you're able to build your schedule around that. I did want to say, so you guys just got back from a trip, right? When you're talking about work-life balance, didn't you guys go somewhere super exotic? I saw on Facebook.
Well, unfortunately this year, my husband doesn't have a great amount of vacation time. So I've been doing a lot of traveling, which is really awesome that he is supportive of that. I actually just started working with a travel company as well, in terms of doing photos for them, which has been amazing because, as I told you, getting into piloting was so I could travel. It's been a cool transition to see the photography marry up with one of my other passions, which is traveling. So I'm working with a company called Traverse Journeys, and it's a startup out of Austin. And I just got paid to go to Ecuador and take pictures of an eco lodge out there and nature photos of all the animals and wildlife and all of that. It was amazing. So yes, I just got back from that. But it was technically a work trip.
But that's great if that's your goal, is to travel and get paid,
I'm actually going to Nicaragua at the end of this month with them again and doing a yoga retreat out there. And they really focus on sustainable travel. So like 5% of all of their profits go to the local community to either do to support education, women's, empowerment, and like ecological preservation for like the area. So I totally get on board with all that because I'm very much a dirty hippie when it comes to environmental work and being sustainable. So,
is that going to be a focus now, or a partial focus?
It will be. Yeah. I hope this kind of opens some new, obviously everything with photos, you can get into an area, but it's I feel like to keep myself creatively relevant, it's good to not just do one thing all the time. Obviously I do weddings, I'm really good at doing weddings, but, I switch it up, do family, newborns, engagement, which is kind of wedding related, but, it's been amazing doing something completely different with the travel photography. But to kind of answer your question, my husband, we're saving up all of our vacation right now, or all of his vacation. We're going to Antarctica this upcoming January. Well, and that will be the last continent that I will check off my list.
Because I saw that as well, that you've been to all the continents, and you guys are big travelers.
Yeah, so we're really excited. We're going to Buenos Aires, and then we're taking like a 2-week boat ride to the actual continent of Antarctica. And we'll be camping only one night on the continent. So I'm really stoked.
That's kind of terrifying.
It is a little terrifying, yeah. Yeah, but that's our jam, is adventure.
So to get back, so now you're working full time, you're doing weddings, you're loving it, happy, successful. What was there a point then now, like, do you feel like it's just kind of been on an upward growth, or do you feel like there was a point when you feel like, okay, like we're really clicking now, or I'm really doing what I'm supposed to be doing in terms of like numbers and clients and happiness and things like that?
Well, I think, kind of working full time in corporate America while I was building up my business allowed more flexibility for me to like get my feet under myself and make sure that I was on track to doing what I wanted to do financially, so that I didn't feel like I was struggling my first year. Photography, especially with weddings, is kind of unique because people are planning pretty far out in advance. So it's nice because you usually book weddings a little bit further in advance. So you kind of have a projection of what you're going to do, which can be both a blessing and a curse, because if you're not booking out, then you can get a little stressed out because there are some last minute, planners or people, people not jumping on the photography piece of their wedding as soon as maybe they should to ensure availability. But no, I think the first year that I went full time with photography was the year I felt like I really reach my financial goals. Anytime you do any changes, I feel like it takes your business a little time to stabilize after doing a rebranding or price changes or anything. But I felt like my skill level and the, experience that I was offering my customers deserved a more appropriate price point. So I did increase my pricing and offered more to my clients. And this past year, 2017, I saw a decrease in bookings, but it was kind of nice because I was able to offer, that was part of the goal, was I wanted to take on less clients and offer a more personalized approach to their wedding photos, which is exactly what I was able to do. So
talk to me about Seattle Flashing Lights, where you talk about, your branding, like what, if you could sum up kind of what you are about, or what, you want people that are looking for when they find you, what is that?
That's a good question. I think my ideal client is somebody who fully trusts in my creative process. Like, obviously you can go online and see, I have a large portfolio. I have lots of full collections people can see. So like you said, it's very subjective. If they like my work, they like my work. But I want them to put trust in me and know that they're hiring me to do a job that I will do well, and not necessarily like micromanage or try to show me a Pinterest board with 8 billion photos on it that they want me to mirror, because I feel like that doesn't help the creative process. So yeah, my ideal clients are people who trust me, who are fun to be around and enjoy living life, and not putting the entire focus of their wedding planning on the actual planning, but on the fact that they're getting married and they're marrying their person. Because I think that's the end goal of the wedding, is that you get to then be married to somebody. And it's great to like put a lot of emphasis on the details and planning, but every time I talk to do my pre-wedding consult with my clients, I always like to remind them, like, enjoy this. This is the last time you're not going to be husband and wife, and like, this is a big time.
We first met at our wedding last year with Adam and Maria, at the Jubilee Garden, which to me still is one of the best days like I've ever had.
Oh,
in
so
terms
memorable.
Of,
yeah.
Just like the energy and the couple and they were excited, and obviously, Chihuly is beautiful, but I mean, it was just something about like, I don't know, it was just something in the air that day. I mean, even going back now and like watching that video again, so if that's the kind of clients that you're attracting, I mean, then that's obviously got to be pretty infectious, to you and pretty addicting, right? To that kind of energy. I mean, talk about that.
Yeah. I feel like the people that I get the opportunity to work with have similar personalities to me. And I feel like we've done a good job with my branding to attract the right fit, because it is such a personal business. It's not, it is a business, but at the same time, like, it's really personal. The photos, that's how you're going to remember everything, or videos, how you remember the whole day. All the rest of your investments that you make for your wedding, that's how you're going to archive them, is with the pictures or the videos. So it's a really important job, right? But I feel like the people that I attract are more on my personality level, which is awesome, because then we click and it makes it way, way better for both of us. Like, they feel a rapport with me, I feel a rapport with them. We get excited, together, and it's feed off that energy together, and it's great. And I feel that way about the wedding pros that they work with too. Like, obviously it was really fun working with you. And we kind of had a similar work process that we did while we were there, and enjoyed the couple, enjoyed the day, enjoyed everything. So
yeah. And I mean, and that goes directly into like why like I want to do this interview series, and because nowadays I do think a lot of the times people are choosing their wedding vendors, because of who they are and because of their personalities, and they might meet with 10 or 15, I know a lot of couples meet with a lot of, photographers, especially before they book. And so I think that like, whoever, like whatever your personality is now is very important and like instrumental in like the businesses that you have and like the types of clients you attract. And so I think like you coming on and doing this is so important, because that does show kind of your personality, and that people that are attracted to that, would be attracted to work with you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then like obviously I think everybody who's been in the wedding industry for a while, have pros that they like to work with, right? And that they refer other people out to, which is great, because like, when a couple is going into their planning, it's overwhelming. Like it's great that there's Wedding Wire and The Knot and Google, reviews and Yelp and all of that, but like, they don't know those people reviewing from anywhere. So if they find a vendor that they feel like they're really clicking with and that has a similar style of, work that they like, the personality that they like, and then refers them to other vendors, they can kind of rest assured that like, dude, you've been doing this for a really long time. Like, the people in the industry, and these are people that I can trust and that will probably have a similar style and feel in terms of their personality and quality that you as the vendor that they hired do as well. I hope anyway.
Talk to me about, so I'm Mary Jane and I'm going to get married, and I am interested, in your photography. Walk me through that process, right? What is the experience of somebody working with Seattle Flashing Lights? What does that look like?
Well, usually it starts with an email. It can always start with a call too, but usually we get an email in, and I always like to meet up with my potential wedding clients first. I give them some basic information to see if we're a good fit in terms of basic pricing, style, all of that. And usually it's right away we are, because they've done some research. But then I definitely want to meet up to make sure that I'm a good fit for them personality wise, and that they're a good fit for me too, because like I said, it's so important to like be able to feed off of each other through the entire creative process and make sure like we're spending the whole day together. I don't want them to be miserable because they don't enjoy spending time with me. Like that's not going to do anybody any favors. So like if I'm not their style, in terms of how I am as a person, it's not going to hurt my feelings because I want them to have a good day, so we meet up. Usually I like to see if they want to grab a beer or a coffee. Either's totally fine. And then we just chat. We like look through a more extended portfolio of my work. I get to hear more about like how they met, hear more about their story, answer a lot of questions for them, and just spend some time talking and getting to know each other. And then if they decide I'm the right fit, it's always a celebration. We contract from there. And then I continue to help them answer questions and stuff throughout the whole planning process. I do have a list of preferred vendors or trusted vendors that I have loved working with, and happily send them their way just to help with their planning process. And then usually we do an engagement session so that they can, in a more low-key setting, get to see how I work. It really helps too, because then the day of their wedding, they have the full amount of trust. They know what I do specifically with them, so they can see, or they already know, like, she's going to take great photos, even if we feel awkward. Like you can always just see, like, they just feel so much better, especially usually the guys. Because it's not like that's something people do on a normal basis, like pay somebody to follow them around and take pictures. I mean, maybe they do, but like, usually not my clients. Yeah. So yeah, it's great to get to work with them ahead of time. And then we always have a pre-wedding consult, a couple of weeks before the wedding. I send them over some homework. I have a shot list that I provide them to make sure we're all on the same page, because I want them to maximize their investment in me to make sure I'm getting exactly what they want. Because it is all about them to me. That's the service I want to provide, is like, it's never cookie cutter. I always want to get to know my clients and know exactly what they want.
Is there a recent memory that stands out, or a recent experience that really will stick with you?
It's so hard. I developed such great relationships with all of my clients, to be honest. And I don't mean to sound like cheesy, but it's true. Like any of the weddings that I've done in the 7.5 years I've been doing this, I remember their names. I remember probably the names of their bridal party, their colors, like where they got married. Like it's important to me. Like I'm being invited into one of the most important days of their life, the beginning of their official love story. Right. So, each wedding I feel like is so unique anymore that there's cool things about each one. I did just have a winter wedding in Suncadia this January, and it was so amazing. Like everything about it from start to finish was amazing. Like the couple was just awesome. They totally trusted me. They were so much fun to work with. It was a little bit smaller of a wedding, but like they really paid attention to the details, and they were so all about each other that it was so much fun to like watch them. That's you, Brent and Delaney. If you watch this, you guys were so rad. I had so much fun working with you. So Now I'm going to point them into the direction of this podcast. Give her the shout out. But yeah, it was a great way to start 2018 because it totally refreshed me and, gave me so much energy about the upcoming wedding season because it was and snow at a wedding. Oh, so awesome. Yeah. Everything about it was great.
Do you ever get anxious? I know that, October, November, whatever, things start to slow down in Seattle. And then it is like that, except for maybe a New Year's Eve wedding or whatever. But do you feel that need to be creative and be doing things like that?
Well, yeah, to kind of almost refresh your creative eye, right? It's great. I get to do a lot of side projects, just on my own, especially with the travel that I get to do. For me, because I don't just do weddings, my busy season stays busy usually until mid-December because I'm doing a lot of family pictures and holiday stuff. But yeah, so for me, slower season is usually January through March. And that is the time I get to kind of refresh, myself, take some time off. I usually do a lot of travel during that period just to get away. Cause I don't get to vacation during the summer, you're editing when you're not taking photos or not doing video, you're editing and you're delivering galleries and, meeting with clients and, all of those behind the scenes fun things. But yeah, it's good to go out and hike around the area or just get out and take pictures of stuff that you fully want to take pictures of. And sometimes I force my family into doing my sister and my nephew, I force them into doing photos that I want to do just because I get to do that.
Do you, and you've spoken, you do, this is again, another obvious question, but one thing I lament as a videographer is the need for a professional videographer is your wedding. And then maybe if your sister's getting married, where I always do have envy where you get to live with, I really do. Cause like you said, you get to do the wedding, the engagements, family or newborn photos. Talk about that and just being able to live with your clients like that.
It's so awesome. Like I said, I just absolutely love the fact that I have families that I've been working, they are families now because they have kids and, I've been watching them grow and documenting their lives for years. And it's just such an important part of it. It invigorates me. And it's just so much fun to see a family from the time we've done engagement photos to their kids going into school and getting to see them once a year. I actually just booked a family. They have a little boy who I think he's turning 4 this year. And I've worked with them from engagement all the way through, and I get to see them every year. And it's so fun to see how big he is now, and getting to continue to tell people's stories over the years with my photos is one of my favorite parts of the job. And just the amazing clients that have now become friends, is just so special. It's great.
I do think, and something I've been thinking a lot about lately too, is just that web, that we're able to, I think the only other, my wife's a teacher, and I think that maybe has a similar, right, where obviously you're these kids and then they go on and you're kind of able to see. But I do think that our industry is unique in that way where, even if you only touch that client, one time or 2 or 3, that you're able to kind of follow them and be with them, right?
Oh yeah. And this might sound a little creepy, but I've gone over to clients' houses, to do family photos with them or whatever. And to see, to go into their home, obviously to be welcomed into somebody's home like that and then capture their life is fantastic. But then you walk in and you see your work up on their walls and you're like, this is why I do what I do. It's because I'm preserving these moments for them that obviously they treasure as well. They find value in, and there is nothing like that. It's great.
Tell me about your first wedding or the first wedding.
It was super small. It was at, I remember the couple was Bill and Olga. They got married over at Woodland Park, the Rose Gardens over there. So outside of the Woodland Park Zoo. Their photographer had fallen through and they contacted us the day before their wedding, but it was 11 people. And that was our very first wedding. It went great. Their photos were on our website for a really long time because they were awesome. But even that first year, we had 11 weddings that we shot our very first year. but all much smaller scale, which was a good way to get our feet under us to get an idea of what we wanted to do. But yeah, even that there was so much energy and so much love, and like seeing Bill the first time he saw his wife that day, like the first time, their first look, I don't remember any other feeling like that. Like just, like the excitement and the love, and just, you could just see everything on their faces. And it was so awesome. And it doesn't get old. Like that never gets old. So, yeah.
What's next in terms of, obviously Antarctica, but in terms of, professionally, where do you see yourself, or what's your next big goal or milestone?
I really want to get into more intimate weddings. That's kind of my favorite genre to work with. Particularly because I feel like the focus for people that are doing smaller weddings, they're really focusing again on like their marriage, their love for each other. They don't necessarily have to have every single detail exactly perfect, because their relationship is perfect to them, and to the people in their life. And so they're really focusing on celebrating that love. I think it's more my style too. Like my husband and I had a really small wedding. All the people there, it was like 30 people, obviously, because we were getting married in Fiji, but that's just more my speed. And so I'm really trying to like market myself more towards more intimate weddings. That being said, the big weddings can be really fun and really awesome too, like Maria and Adam's amazing Chihuly wedding.
I will always remember sitting there filming Cocktail Hour at Chihuly. You've got the glass and the Space Needle.
It was like surreal, right?
And I'm like, oh, that's Steve Ballmer.
Yeah.
That's Steve Ballmer sitting right there. And I went up to Adam and I said, you didn't tell me Steve Ballmer. He goes, oh yeah, that's like our neighbor, or we play golf, or it was something like super casual. And I'm like, richest man in the Pacific Northwest. And he's standing here at Cocktail Hour at the wedding.
Yeah, that was just such a gorgeous wedding.
Yeah. If people want to learn more about you, what you do, what you're about, where should they reach out? Where should they look? What should they do?
Oh, totally. Check out our website. It's www.cseaflashinglights.com. There's a lot of wonderful information in there. They can always reach out via Facebook, via Instagram. I would like to think that my Instagram page is fairly exciting. I post a lot of professional stuff, but also a lot of like personal day-to-day stuff. You will see a lot of my dogs on there because they're adorable and amazing. But Instagram's great. Facebook is great. Email's always great. Call me up. We can go grab a beer. We can go grab a coffee. I love talking about my passion, which is Seattle flashing lights and doing photos. It's great.
Any other bucket list venues around here? Obviously, we could go hike to the top of Mount Everest and do a wedding. But in terms of, places here that you'd want to check out?
I really want to go. I'm going to space on the name, but it's is it Treehouse Point? The one that like has the tree houses over in Issaquah?
It's Treehouse Lodge, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah. It just looks so unique and amazing. I would really like to do a wedding over there. I feel like that would just be a fun venue to work at and just really unique. I also wouldn't mind doing like an elopement or something smaller up at Rattlesnake Ridge. I think that would be pretty rad because it's so beautiful up there.
And you're big outdoorsy.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. But there's so many venues. Chateau Ste. Michelle, I feel like would be a really cool one to do a wedding at too. I haven't been up there yet. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time and willingness to come on and share your story.
Absolutely.
And this has been a lot of fun. And stay tuned next week. We'll have another professional wedding vendor interview coming up. Thanks for listening on Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Thanks.
Thanks, Reed.